Hey everyone, and Tony here, and this is a tribute video dedicated to what has to be Nickelodeon's best show of all time, Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I really have to say that I am more than proud to be a fan of this show because everything about it speaks well to me. Every piece of writing is intricate and well told, and every character is lovable and some that I could even root for, even though some of them can be villains. It doesn't really matter which side I root for, whether they be the heroes, villains, or just in between. I still root for them. And not to mention every single situation that they get themselves into, or even scenario, just feels fresh and feels so engaging and exciting that every time I see it on screen, whether I watch it on television or watch it online, I get totally pumped up, and it just really shows you how much of an exciting legacy this has left me. Now, like I said before in my review, I did catch this ever since I was 13 years old, and at first glance I was kind of skeptical with it, but I grew to love it over time and ended up being proud calling myself a fan of this show because words cannot really describe how much Avatar: The Last Airbender has really meant for me and why it really deserves the praise that it really has and why it deserves such a really great fan base that's devoted and really dedicated into really making the show the way it is. And it really shows just how strong the show is for me and how it managed to knock my skepticism out of the water and just really took great faith in the show and just basically, well, took me into its world and then just really showed me how things were going to unfold. And that's what I found really lovable about Avatar: The Last Airbender. It wasn't afraid to go to places that, well, a lot of cartoons or shows aimed towards a younger audience went to. It's never afraid to take risks. It's never afraid to make us have an emotion for characters. It's never afraid to balance comedy with drama and action, fantasy, mystery, and everything else in between. It feels like its own genre, and it makes me feel rather happy to see that we have such a dedicated team like Michael Dante DiMartino, Brian Konietzko, James Hubbard, Aaron Ahash, and Joaquim Dos Santos. Now, what I found very interesting about Joaquim Dos Santos was that he also worked on episodes of Justice League, so you could really see that touch of magic and that touch of epicness that he managed to place within the show because of his experience writing such, well, really great characters and even knowing what direction they should take and how they should grow as people. I mean, I've actually grown to love all the characters. I mean, at first glance, I kind of didn't like Zuko because he was rather mean and pushy, and he was pretty much the first villain that the show had, but I actually grew to love Zuko over time and found out that he was just more than that, which really shows that this show has a lot of dedicated writers who are extremely dedicated to fleshing out all of these characters so that I could really understand what they're dealing with, where they come from. And with Avatar: The Last Airbender, it's made me feel for everyone. It's made me feel for what the situations they go through. I mean, especially Katara. I mean, I'm actually still grateful that I have my parents in my life, but I actually know what it's like to lose a mom in Katara's case. And I have to say that it is a very painful experience that she goes through. So this show definitely allows me to feel for her as a character, and it's no wonder why I keep finding myself rooting for her and why I keep just wanting her to succeed in whatever she does, because this show really does it for me. This show really makes me feel for everyone in the show. It says made me feel for Mei, Ty Lee, and Zuko and Azula, especially in the beach episode. And, well, one can say that, of course, shows like Hey Arnold, As Told by Ginger, and even Adventure Time, and, what do you call this? Justice League, and Thundercats, and many, many other shows that have great character development do it for me. But with Avatar The Last Airbender, it was the one that managed to really whisk me in and just really feel for these characters. Of course, there's also Shaolin Showdown, which also preceded Avatar with a concept, but I felt that Avatar The Last Airbender really perfected it and really made it stand on its own and made it very distinctive and made it very unique, very groundbreaking, and just excellent. I mean, it's no surprise that the show has garnered a 9.2 over 10 on IMDb. I guess it's very understandable because, yeah, Avatar The Last Airbender does have some competition as well with other well-written shows that are also live action. But I have to say that as an animated series, it really is that excellent and manages to bring, like, people who are animation fans, people who love, like, great writing, people who love, like, very intricate stories being told, people who want to see real characters, and people who really want to see characters as people and not just as caricatures. We want to see them as people. And that's what Avatar The Last Airbender really did for me. It really had such really multi-dimensional and really phenomenal characters. A lot of them that I've actually found myself thinking, it'd be really great friends with them. It's like, I've always thought to myself, it'd be great to be, best friends forever with Zuko, Sokka, Mei, Katara, Ty Lee, Aang, Toph, Momo, Appa, Iroh, King Boomy, the Cabbage Man, or even the likes of Yue and Suki, Song, Jin. Yeah, that's how much of a profound effect these characters really had on me. And growing up, it's like, I love these characters, and it's like, I know, right? It is kind of weird for me to say that if they ended up coming to life, I might want to hang out with them and all that type of stuff. But it's also thanks to the phenomenal voice work. I mean, you could really tell that all the voice actors really put their heart and soul into it. And Dante Bosco really sold me off as Zuko. I did love his work as Jake Long from American Dragon Jake Long, but it's really as Zuko that has really put him on the map. He did an excellent job putting in a lot of layers, putting a lot of personality to his performance, and really making us see, like, Zuko does have a soul. He really does have a genuine soul that is pretty much crying for help and just wants to find his way in the world. And even in the season finale, we do see that he's finally found his place in the world and has finally found peace. And that's what I truly loved about Dante Basco's performance as Zuko. With Mae Whitman as Katara, I mean, it's rather amazing the progress that she goes through. Of course, nowadays, she's voicing April O'Neil in the TMNT CGI cartoon, but this is one of her finest works. This is one of her finest work of all time. I mean, it's kind of fun or kind of funny that she's went from voicing little Susie from Johnny Bravo when she was just a young kid, and then finding herself voicing Shanti from the extremely forgettable sequel to Jungle Book 2, and here she was as Katara, really pulling it off magnificently, and has just made some amazing moments and really heartfelt moments that have really made my heart go out to Katara. And even with Jack DeSena as Sokka, I was actually very surprised that a former cast member of the revival era of all that would find himself in a series like this. And I'm like thinking to myself, well, let's see what he does. And I have to say that the first viewing that I saw with Jack DeSena as Sokka, he really surprised me. And he really made me invested in his character. He made me just really want to see a lot more of him. And then you have the likes of Grey Delisle as Azula. I thought she was just excellent. This is definitely the finest that she's ever done. Of course, I do like her Mandy, even though I don't really like her character. I may not always like Vicky from Fairly Odd Parents, though she does also put a really great job into making her over the top evil and all that. But with Azula, it's like the calculated type of evil that makes you want to have shivers down your spines, and she does so amazingly with that. I mean, what's also worth mentioning is that you've also had like voice talents like Clancy Brown, who voiced Long Feng. Just excellent work. It really made me have shivers down my spine every time I hear him speak. And then you had the likes of Takayo Fisher, Eric Von Detten, oh yeah, Matthew Underwood was even in an episode, and he voiced one of the bullies where Aang had to disguise himself as a firebending student. And I hated his work in Zoe 101, but funnily enough, he really does a very fine job here, and it really does show that his voice acting abilities are just awesome and flawless. I mean, a lot of the voice actors that have voiced these memorable characters have actually also worked on live action TV as well. I mean, it was also quite surprising to know that, and also quite fun to know that Olivia Hack, who was the voice of Rhonda from Hey Arnold, found herself voicing Ty Lee, which I found pretty much a breath of fresh air. And I always will miss Mako as the voice of Uncle Iroh because he really gave such a warm-hearted personality. Of course, he was also the same guy who voiced Aku from Samurai Jack, but you know, hearing him as Iroh is actually very calming to the nerves, and it's just absolutely fantastic hearing Mako like play the complete opposite of what he voiced with Aku. And yes, his replacement, Greg Baldwin, was also really great as well. He was an equally great replacement, has managed to make the role of Iroh his own. Not to mention D. Bradley Baker's animal sounds as Momo and Appa was just so full of soul because it's just one of the greatest performances ever. And well, he's pretty much like the Frank Welker of today, and you could really see that he's also up there with the likes of Mel Blanc. So he's pretty much one of the huge masters when it comes to Men of a Thousand Voices. So overall, you know what more can I say about the show? I mean, I know that I've stated several times in my review and my top 25 list, but you can never go wrong with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I've recently started watching the first 2 episodes of Legend of Korra. I mean, what more can you do? I've had a lot of things in my life that I had to really work on, which made me not have all the time in the world to catch the sequel series. But I have to really say that the first 2 episodes, even though I have seen that there are a lot of fan art and a lot of like fanfics and all that type of fan-related stuff, I could really tell it's a great series. And all I have to do is just keep watching it so that I could really make the proper review and probably even enjoy the sequel a lot more. And from what I could see, I think the first impressions for the sequel really have made a really strong impression on me. And I've realized that, well, the world that Korra is in is even it's grander in scale, and it's very much more exciting, and the music starts to become more varied. So I'm actually going to keep watching it further. Well, I'm sure that this tribute video did run on for a bit long, but what more can I say about the show? It is definitely like phenomenal and has left a very special place in my heart, and it's something that I'd like to introduce the future generation to if they want something that is so brilliantly crafted. Well, I guess that's it for this tribute. Now, if you want to hear what my thoughts are on the live-action film with M. Night Shyamalan as the director, then tune into the next video. So until then, have a great evening, everybody.